Hi everybody, I'm here with my very first year review, the SOG Kiku. I want to go down some bullet points with it and talk about the specs of the knife and what I think of each, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of uses and some other stuff, some extras and customer service and that sort of thing. So let's talk about the basics of this knife first. For starters, the blade, this is the 4.9-inch model. The blade is made of Oz 8, um, and I think the 4.9 inches is kind of the bare minimum for any sort of bushcraft or survival knife. We'll talk about the uses later, but um, it has excellent, the blade has excellent edge retention. It has moderate corrosion resistance. I have used this knife in saltwater environments. Uh, I don't really recommend that. It's pretty good for brief trips into saltwater, but also it's not really a good saltwater. This is not going to be a dive knife. As far as the finish is concerned, it has a great finish. The blade itself, when it ships, now this one has some scratches and stuff from where I've used it. Um, but wow, yeah, I just died. I'm gonna have to cut this. But the knife actually ships really well finished. Um, there are a couple points I don't like here on the back of the knife. This point back here, very sharp, very sharp, and I need to sand that down. You could cut yourself with the butt of the knife, and that's never good. That's nothing you can't finish yourself, and I'm not saying it's that way on every knife. I just have this one sample, so it may not hold true for other examples. Let's move on. The handle is really nice for the price point. It is a micarta. These are micarta scales. Outstanding. I don't think I've ever seen that on a knife in the $100 range before. I have to say the handle is outstanding and very grippy. The sheath. The sheath is made out of Kydex. The base sheath is put together very well. I really like the base sheath. There are some problems though. We're going to get into that later with some of these attachments. It ships with several of these clips for different options, and that's where this knife really hit the snag. But we're going to talk about that in more detail later. Let's move on. Uh, let's talk about the geometry of this knife, which is probably its most striking feature. Um, the geometry of the knife is a recurve, um, and then it graduates into an upswept, almost a drop point tip at the end. Um, it has a almost secondary point, if you can see that there, um, like a tanto blade. That that I like that in a lot of ways. In some ways, especially when it comes to resharpening, can be a real pain. But overall, I like that. I like the overall design, and I do actually like that secondary point, even though it comes with some trade-offs, especially like I said, when it comes to resharpening. The ergonomics of this knife are absolutely outstanding. It is very grippy. It fits in the hand very well in a number of positions. Um, and it's just, I have to say, it is really, just as far as ergonomics are concerned, a wonderful blade. Uh, Overall, I am very impressed with the ergonomics. Um, all right, so let's go on to uses. Um, and I actually This is on my survival pack, and it accompanies my hunting gear. I switched them out. So let's talk about, you know, uses, things I've used it for, and things you could use it for as well. Uh, Uses that I could see. Uh, I see two primary uses. One being an excellent combat knife and survival knife with a few notes. One being that the knife is not going to retain its edge forever given its geometry. Repeated sharpenings will wear this blade down faster than what I would consider acceptable for a bushcraft knife. But treating it lightly, it is definitely well built enough to baton within a true survival situation. It really excels at skin and game, fish included, and the recurve is well suited to batoning medium-sized wood. The sheath allows you to easily attach cordage, tinder, and a fire steel, or any number of other small survival items. This is the knife that is permanently attached to my survival bag at the moment, and will be for the foreseeable future. Um, and you can see here, I do actually have some extra cordage attached underneath this, underneath these Ranger bands here, just cut up inner tube. Don't ever pay for Ranger bands. Make them yourself. Get a piece of inner tube, chop it up. You'll save yourself tons of money. I actually have some sinew under there. And this does carry other things at times, fire steels and whatnot, but I just have it stripped down for the purpose of this video. So let's talk about some of the snags I've hit with this knife. One in particular being actually in the customer service department, and some of the make. When I first got the knife, it shipped with two of these attachments. I'm actually going to adjust the camera here a little better, or a little bit here, so you can see a little better. All right, so it shipped with two of these attachments, and they just screw on with these bolts. The attachment with the bolts is very positive. You're not going to lose any of the parts due to the bolts slipping. They really stay. I do have to say that about it. It shipped with a nylon attachment that I really liked, that attached here instead of this clip. The nylon attachment came up and it was a belt piece. I don't have it anymore. I really wasn't planning on doing this review, so I didn't hold on to it. But it frayed and fell apart within the first week. Customer service was terrible. I'm not going to pull my punches. After the nylon sheath attachment fell apart in under a week, they gave me the runaround about replacing it. They wanted me to send the entire knife back to Amazon and get an entirely new knife through Amazon instead of just shipping the failed part. I didn't want to do it because this particular knife was holding an edge better than what I probably would have received as a replacement. This might be small potatoes to some, but returns are difficult for me as the nearest UPS drop-off is 30 miles away, and it would have cost SOG practically nothing to ship the replacement part. I really think this was uncalled for. I think they really, having a part fail like that, they absolutely should have replaced it without any argument. It should have been in the mailbox and sent as soon as I filed the complaint. There's really no call for that. This isn't the first time I've had issues with SOG's customer service or a sheath falling apart for that matter. Okay, so I want to touch on would I buy it again, or would I recommend it to other people? It's a tough call. There really is no excuse for the sheath belt attachment falling apart so quickly. It's truly uncalled for. And the poor customer service was just icing on the cake, especially since this isn't my first bad experience with SOG, or even the first sheath I've had fall apart. I'm going to say that honestly, if I had it to do over, I actually still would buy this knife. But to be fair, there are so many attachment options for the knife that it really isn't a deal breaker. In hindsight, I should have sent the blade back and tested the second knife for retention for this review. I have to say that in the end, I would recommend this knife and I would buy it again. But everyone watching should know not to rely on the nylon belt loop option, as it could leave you stranded without a knife. Uh, losing a retention piece like that, it is really unacceptable. But the replacement clip that's on the back is sturdy enough to do the job. Um, and there are other options woven in here, and you can get like custom pieces here. That's a lot for $100 knife, though I wouldn't be above it. So as far as the blade is concerned, I'm going to score it an overall 7, and for the price point, a 9. It really has held up well. I've skinned game with it. I've worked in the field with it a lot. It has been a great knife. It's put up with some abuse, and the edge just keeps on going. I've still not had to sharpen this knife, and it's still paper cutting sharp. It won't shave anymore, but it will cut paper still, and that's with nearly 2 years worth of use. It has done very well. As far as the handle is concerned, I've got to give the handle a 10 out of 10. This is one of the best handles on any knife that I've seen so far. It's a 10 out of 10 for an overall score and for price. For the sheath, I have to bump it down just on the basis that the belt retention strap broke. I hate doing it because the sheath has a lot of features that I really love. I want to give it a 9. I want to give it a 10. At this price point, it is absolutely one of the best sheaths I've ever seen. But because the belt retention strap failed on me, I have to knock it off, and I have to be serious about it. Having your belt loop retention strap break within the first week could leave some people without a knife in some really bad circumstances. So I have to be harsh here. I don't want to be, but I have to be. So I'm bumping this down for an overall score of 5, but the price point is still a 7 because it does have the clip that you can replace the belt loop with. As far as the geometry, now this may vary from people, from person to person, but I know some people have their opinions about recurve. Some people, they're an either you love them or hate them thing. I love them. I've got a lot of experience using them over the years, and I absolutely love them. I love the secondary. I love the secondary pseudo tanto point. I like it a lot, and the drop point yields itself to skin and game really well. The point that is very pronounced. I really like that on any survival knife because I I I view my view is that any survival knife worth its salt needs to be able to skin fish. You can't do that without a really pronounced point. I don't see this point breaking off even with serious batoning use. And I'm talking heavy batoning use. The geometry on this knife is outstanding if you like the recurve on the knife. So I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. Also a 10 out of 10 for the price point. Ergonomics, also a 10 out of 10. It fits the hand really well. I've never gotten blisters while using it, and it really stays put. It really wants to stay just right where you want it, right in the sweet spot of your hand, and you can work with it for hours on end and never wind up with a problem. And this is true whether you have gloves on, whether you're barehanded, it doesn't seem to matter. So, what do I think about the overall? I think it's a great knife for the price. I wish the customer service was better. But I have to admit, I am impressed. The overall score on this knife is a 42 out of 50. And for the price, I think you've really got a nice piece on your hands at 46 out of 50. I would honestly buy this knife again even without the problems.
Um, what about the extras?